Hello there, I'm DJ Handywipe. Welcome to PeptoTapeworm Presents. This is my showcase for the various projects of PeptoTapeworm Productions. And today my special guest is the performance art project Dzong. And today in studio I'll have my guest William Hertel from Dzong. Let's get right to it with some music from Dzong. Okay, we're back. I'm DJ Handywipe, and that was God's Disgusting Creature off the album Diet for a One-Year-Old. I'm here today. Our featured guest is the band Zong. That's myself and William Hertel. William.
Hello.
Nice to have you here, William. Welcome back to Lancaster.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
All right, man. Yeah, man. Me and William, we started this project back in 1994, and
wow, that's hard to believe. It's such a long time ago.
Yeah, it really is, and it doesn't feel like it, but it's strange how all these years later, you know, it's like we're back to listening to this stuff, and we're going to put on another Zong show in December.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
So, man, William, give me some of your impressions early on into the project. Like, what were your first impressions of this strange kind of music that we were making?
Well, you know, it was just, I think it came out of, I think the beginning of it was, one, I think boredom and wanting to do something, wanting to create something, and create something that hadn't really been heard so much. Create something new and something different, something that spoke to where we were in, you know, our tastes or our inspirations. And so, yeah, it was very different and very out of left field. Not to say that there weren't other musicians or bands that were kind of navigating those waters before, but, you know, to make it yourself and to do it yourself is another thing. And I think the first impressions were, wow, this is really fun. This is really a great way to create in a new, different way and to kind of experiment with sound, with time, with equipment. And I think it was just so liberating to everything that we did was born out of experimenting, I feel.
Oh yeah, because I remember the first time we recorded together, it was just something to do. Let's go in the other room and turn on the 4-track and make some noise.
Yeah,
you know, and it was not expecting anything to come out of it at all.
Right,
know?
And I think after we had been in there and just been so focused and so kind of just in our own zones, I suppose, that, you know, after an hour we kind of like stopped and played it back and we were like, wow, that was really very cool. And I think that just that feeling of surprise and just kind of spurred us on to keep doing more. And, you know, whatever I could get my hands on to make sound, I did, and continued to search for different unexpected ways to make unholy sound.
Yeah, total experiment. It started as a total experiment, and it just grew into a total experimental project where the whole thing was about live multi-track recording and bringing multi-track to live performance and mixing the two in a way that I hadn't heard done before. We've got some more music. We've got about 3 more pieces that we're going to play here in part 1, and why don't we get on to it? The next piece is from 1996. This is from the album Wood. This piece is called Precipice. Okay, welcome back. I'm DJ Handywipe. I'm here today with William Hertel.
Hello, hello.
And we formed the performance art project Dzong back in the 1990s.
Wow.
Yeah. So, William, why don't you tell us some of your influence that led into this project?
Okay, I think, I didn't consider myself a musician at the time. It wasn't my chosen form of expression. At the time I was in art school, and I viewed myself as a visual artist, and the approach and the inspirations that I had for this were really firmly rooted in Dada and the Dadaist artists of the early 20th century and their techniques and the way they kind of took things, unrelated things, and put them together, whether it was in the form of a collage or found objects, and creating something that maybe didn't have a message or did not have a narrative, embracing the absurd maybe. And so a lot of my approaches to making the music that we did were firmly rooted in the way that those artists approached making art. And I saw this as just that. And I didn't really look at it coming from a musical background, because I had none at all. You were the musician at the time.
And I was kind of on the opposite side of the fence. I was not doing art so much at the time. I was coming at it from a music standpoint and from a production standpoint. And my influences like mid-period Pink Floyd, when they were really heavy on the texture, and the prog from the 70s. I remember listening to King Crimson and stuff like that. And but nothing really. I was not listening to anything that was quite like what we were doing here.
There wasn't a lot at the time. There were bands and there were people that were kind of in this territory. A lot of what was really popular in the 80s was in the 90s at the time was like ambient music, but that was all very kind of techno driven and club driven, and it was like it was still kind of an offshoot of techno and house music and all of that. And it wasn't quite this raw or this free, I suppose. There was still beat and rhythm, and all of that was really involved. And it was, I think that we weren't really like that. We were more open.
The whole performance art concept was basically we were blurring the lines between studio recording and live performance, and we were really mixing those up by bringing live performance into the studio environment, and then taking these studio recordings out to live performances and completing them on the spot.
It made it really cool because working with an existing track when you were playing live gave you a bass to kind of react to. And you had some time to think, okay, this is playing, there's a track of me playing this gong right now that we're all listening to. Let me go react to that and layer something on top of that and build. and build. And it was a great way to work.
And then the live show sounded slightly different than the recordings, because these recordings that we're listening to now, these were we would then take the recordings back into the studio and make the mixes of the recordings.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to lay, the final texture on and everything.
Which isn't that different from sketching, or painting. You lay something really kind of you lay a rough groundwork, and you work it again, and you work it again, and you work it again until you are satisfied. And that's really what we did.
Yeah. I found in my experience with art and music, both with painting and with recording, that the two mediums are really very similar. Painting and recording are essentially the same things. The only difference is with recordings, you're painting with waves that your ears will interpret, and with paintings, you're painting with waves that your eyes will interpret. But essentially, you're creating the same things.
It's a great point.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to more music with Dzong. This next piece is a shorter piece. Dzong.
What we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday, and our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind. If a man speaks or acts with an impure mind, suffering follows him, as the wheel of the cart follows the beast that draws the cart. What we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday, and our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind. If a man speaks or acts with a pure mind, joy follows him as his own shadow. He insulted me, he hurt me, he defeated me, he robbed me. Those who think such thoughts will not be free from hate. He insulted me, he hurt me, he defeated me, he robbed me. Those who think not such thoughts will be free from hate. For hate is not conquered by hate. Hate is conquered by love. This is a law eternal. Many do not know that we are in this world to live in harmony. Those who know this do not fight against each other. He lives only for pleasures. His soul is not in harmony. Considers not the food he eats. Is moved. As a wing by the wind. He who lives not for pleasures, soul is itself harmony. Which is impure, self-harmony and truth. He is not the holy road. He is pure from sin, whose soul is strong in virtue. He is
dựng xã hội. Như vậy mỗi người chúng ta dù rất bé nhỏ tâm thương cũng cần cho giáo hội. Chúng ta nghe trong thư gửi giáo đoàn Corinto diễn tả rất hay về điều tôi muốn nói đây với quý vị. Tí như có một thân thể ấy gồm nhiều chi thể.
Okay, we're back. That was a short piece. That piece just called Dharma 2. William, why don't you tell us a little about that piece?
I remember that. I remember, as we were listening to it, I remember that day, as a matter of fact. But I was reading from the Dhammapada, which is a collection of sayings of the Buddha, and I had been reading the book, and I grabbed it. It was laying around in the studio, and I grabbed it and just started reading it, and that was the spoken word aspect of that piece.
Yeah, as I recall, I think that you recorded the samples to your little handheld.
Yes.
And then we took them over to Hang in Java, and at Hang in Java, you actually played the samples through a microphone onto the recording. And then we took it back in the studio and we remixed it much later down the road.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite ways to work, and I think one of the first kind of quote-unquote instruments that I started to play with was the handheld tape recorder. Back then, you could get little tape recorders that were small enough to hold in your hand, and you could actually either record on them, and then play them back.
What's a tape recorder?
I know. So you could record on them and then play back, just using a standard cassette, or you could just use it to play. And so I love the idea of having all of these sound textures or recordings or whatever kind of samples that I was generating at the time, and I would just play them with the tape recorder or handheld tape recorder in front of a microphone. And there were times where I had a couple going at once, and you just had a bank of mics that would
a couple of mics for the stereo field, and
I would just set them in front of the microphone and let them play. And some of them had spoken word where I was reading, or some of them were found sounds that I would happen. I think we recorded a train one time, or the kitchen sink, or anything that I could kind of record an interesting sound texture or a length of sound. I had bags and bags and boxes of those cassettes, thousands of little snippets that I would, kind of punctuate our performance with. And it was a fun way to work, because I felt like I'm not making music. It gave a counterpoint to you, the legitimate musician. You were playing instruments, and I would kind of like attack what you were doing, so to speak, or layer on what you were doing, so to speak, with these handheld tape recorded samples. And that track was a good example of that technique.
Okay, we've got one more track for today's session. Okay, this next track is C23. It's a remix that we made in 1997, and let's listen to that right now. Okay, we're back. Wow, that was a little different. That was a C23. That was a remix that we made in 1997. It was we made this remix for a demo. We wanted to put together a 15-minute demo that had like 3 different tracks on it, and this was one of the tracks.
Yeah, I would say that it's a good representation of Dzong at its most conventional. It had a melody, and it's really nice to hear again. I hadn't heard that in a while.
Yeah, with the samples at the beginning and coming back in at the end, and then just the guitar synthesizer right there in the middle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all that music was the guitar synth. Man, yeah. Now that was a shorter piece. Originally, that piece was on the Diet for a 1-Year-Old album, in its long form. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Wow. So this is just about the end of part 1 of Dzong. Do you have anything?
It's so nice to kind of revisit this. Thank you. First of all, thank you for asking me today. It's a pleasure to be here. But it's really nice to kind of listen to some of this again, and just kind of revisit it, and to talk with you about it, because it's been quite a while since we'd really revisited this. And it's really gratifying. It's really interesting to, now that 20 years have passed, to kind of think where music was at that point and where it is now. And I listen to a lot of music, and while there are, bands and groups out there that have a similar kind of point of view, it's still pretty cool to consider that we were doing this in the mid-90s when popular music sounded nothing like this at all. And there were certainly, points where groups kind of got into this territory, but it was another thing to play it live in front of audiences, and it was just a lot of great memories and a lot of great sounds. Very, very cool. It makes me proud and humbled at the same time to have been involved in it.
Right on. All the music that you've heard today is available at the website www.PeptoTapeworm.com. You can also link to videos. Dzong has a new live video that we put out this year. It's called The Old Show, and it's remixes of old pieces from 95, 96. And just given a new take with a live track played over them, and the video is available on YouTube. The album's available on the Bandcamp site, so there you go. There's that. Anything you want to plug, William?
I don't have anything I want to plug.
All right. This has been the end of part 1 of Dzong. If you tune in next week at this same time, or through the magic of the internet, you can tune in right away. It's going to be part 2 of Dzong with William Hertel. Thanks for listening. This has been PeptoTapeworm Presents.